It was supposed to be a normal Saturday, the kind where the sun didn't feel heavy and my son's laughter made everything feel lighter. We were at the local strip mall, standing in the toy aisle, his tiny fingers gripping a red fire truck like it was treasure. He was 7, still innocent enough to believe that happiness came in small boxes. "Mom, look, it makes sounds," he said, pressing the button as sirens blared. His eyes lit up like Christmas lights. "Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video?" I smiled. "All right, champ, just one toy, okay?" He nodded hard, cheeks dimpling, and hugged it to his chest. He didn't know I'd been working double shifts at the diner just to afford even that small piece of joy. Rent was late, bills stacked up, but for once, I wanted him to feel like a kid. As we stood at the register, my phone buzzed. Dad. I didn't want to answer, but the third call came fast, followed by a text that said, "Bring the money for your brother. Now." My heart sank. I had told them twice this week that I couldn't send more. I'd already covered my brother's car repair last month and the loan they claimed he needed for medical expenses. I knew what it really was. He'd blown it gambling again. Still, I sent a text back. "I don't have it. I had to buy groceries." Seconds later, my phone rang again. Dad's voice thundered before I could even say hello. "Groceries? For who? That useless brat of yours? While your brother struggles?" "Dad," I said softly. "He's just a kid. He cut me off with a sharp growl. "Don't you dare compare your street rat to my son. You hear me? Don't you dare!" I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I smiled for my son, pretending everything was fine as we walked to the car. When we pulled up to my parents' house later that evening, because part of me was still that child hoping things could be normal, Dad was already waiting in the driveway. The porch light flickered behind him like a warning. He stomped toward the car before I could even step out. His eyes were dark, bloodshot, and full of that familiar disgust. "So," he barked, "you bought him a toy instead of giving me the money?" "Dad, please!" He didn't let me finish. The sound came first, his boot slamming into my ribs. My breath left my body like shattered glass. I stumbled back against the car, pain crawling up my spine. My son screamed, "Mommy!" from the passenger seat, his little hands banging against the window. Dad pointed at him, his voice like gravel. "You see that? That's what happens when your mother forgets her place." Tears blurred my vision. "He's a child. Don't talk to him like that." "Child?" He scoffed. "You think that thing is equal to family? You both don't deserve to breathe the same air as your brother." The front door opened. My mother stepped out, holding a drink in her hand, acting like this was just another show. "Harold, stop yelling. The neighbors will think we're trash." He turned to her, sneering. "They already know we raised one." I felt blood in my mouth. I held my ribs and turned to the car. "Stay in there, baby," I whispered through gritted teeth. Dad wasn't done. "You'll give me the money by tomorrow. Sell that car if you have to. You owe us." "Owe you?" I gasped. "For what? For throwing me out when I got pregnant? For calling my son a mistake every time we visit? For stealing from me every month so he can drink and bet?" He raised his hand again, and for a second, I thought it was coming down. But something changed. I stood taller. My fear snapped like a rope. "Don't," I said coldly, looking him straight in the eyes. "Try it again and you'll regret it." His jaw twitched. "You think you can threaten me? You're nothing. You'll always be nothing." I reached for my son's door, helped him out, and started walking away. He shouted after us, "Don't come back here until you remember who feeds you." I didn't look back. Not this time. That night, I lay on the couch, my ribs wrapped in ice, my son asleep beside me. The fire truck he'd chosen sat on the coffee table, sirens quiet. I stared at it for a long time. My dad thought he'd broken me again. He thought pain still meant control. But he didn't know that pain changes shape when you've survived enough of it. It sharpens. It hardens. I picked up my phone and opened an old email, one I'd ignored for months. It was from a child welfare investigator I'd met years ago while volunteering at a food drive. They'd offered me a job once, one that meant helping kids escape homes like mine. Back then, I'd been too scared to say yes. But now I had a reason. I whispered to myself as I hit reply. You'll see what happens when the one you broke learns how to rebuild. The next few weeks blurred into long nights and quiet anger. Every time I looked at the bruises turning purple across my ribs, I remembered my dad's voice. You don't deserve to breathe the same air as him. The words replayed like a curse, but they didn't break me. They sharpened me. I went back to work at the diner, moving slower but smiling anyway. My son, Liam, stayed close by whenever he could, his eyes always watching me like he was scared I'd fall apart. He never talked about that day, but sometimes, when thunder cracked outside, he'd flinch and crawl into my lap, whispering, Mom, we don't have to see Grandpa again, right? No, baby, I'd tell him softly, brushing his hair back. Never again. But deep down, I knew never again wasn't enough. I couldn't just hide. I had to make sure no one like my dad could ever use that kind of power again. Not over me, not over anyone. So I sent the email, and when the response came, we'd love to meet. With you. I felt something in me rise for the first time in years. At the meeting, the director, a kind woman named Teresa, looked me straight in the eye. You said in your note you've experienced parental abuse and financial exploitation? I nodded. It's not just me, I said. I've seen what families like mine do to their kids. They use fear like a leash. I want to help cut it. She smiled softly. You've already started. They hired me on probation. The job was demanding, interviewing parents, documenting neglect, filing reports. But I was good at it. I knew what manipulation looked like. I knew the tone abusers used, the way they switched between fake kindness and sudden cruelty. Each case I handled was a mirror to my past, but instead of drowning in it, I found purpose. Every child I helped pull out of a violent home felt like reclaiming a small part of the girl my parents tried to destroy. Meanwhile, my family didn't leave me alone. My brother started calling again, always when he needed something. Sis, can you just loan me a few hundred? I'll pay you back, promise. No, I said simply. Then came my mother's texts. Your father's not well. We just need help for a few months. He didn't mean to hurt you, you know that. Every message made my stomach twist. Not because I felt pity, but because I could see the pattern. They weren't sorry, they were desperate, and desperation had always been their excuse to take more. One night, after closing the diner, I walked to the parking lot and saw my father waiting by my car. He looked smaller somehow, his shoulders hunched, his clothes stained with sweat and engine oil. My breath caught, but not out of fear, out of disgust that I once thought this man's opinion defined my worth. He smirked like he used to when I was a kid. You've been ignoring your family. Family? I asked. Funny, I don't remember having one. He stepped closer, his voice sharp. You think you're better than us now? Just because you got some job handing out pity to strangers? I clenched my fists, but I didn't move back. Better? No. Just stronger. And free. He laughed bitterly. Free? You'll never be free. Blood doesn't wash off. I looked him dead in the eyes. Then I'll use it as ink to write you out of my story. He frowned, confused. What's that supposed to mean? You'll find out. I got into my car and drove off, but the next morning I made my first report. Not as a daughter, but as an investigator. You see, my dad had a history. Years of domestic complaints neighbors forgot to follow up on, small claims of unpaid debts, even stolen credit from his own brother. He thought the world forgot. I didn't. I filed every document I could find, every recorded threat, every incident buried under family matters. Teresa helped me escalate it through the legal team. It wasn't vengeance. It was exposure. A month later, he was arrested for fraud, aggravated assault, and unpaid tax violations. The old family business he hid behind had finally collapsed. My mother called me sobbing from a borrowed phone. They're taking the house, Ava, she cried. We have nowhere to go. Please, your father's sick. He needs you. I stared at the wall, calm. Did you need me the night he kicked me in the ribs, when you stood there and did nothing? She went silent. Tell him, I said, voice low, that the daughter he said didn't deserve air just took his breath away. I hung up. After that, everything went quiet. No more calls, no more messages. I focused on Liam, on work, on living like peace wasn't a privilege but a right I'd fought for. Then, one morning, Teresa came to my desk. "Ava," she said gently, "we have a case that might need you. It's close to home." I looked at the file. My parents' names were on it, listed as subjects of eviction and neglect investigation. They'd tried to claim senior benefits using falsified forms. I laughed softly. They never learn. Teresa hesitated. "Do you want someone else to take it?" "No," I said, closing the file. "I want to finish what I started." That night, I drove past their old house. The once polished windows were covered in grime. My mother sat on the porch steps, staring at nothing, while my father yelled inside, his voice hoarse and weak. Liam was in the back seat, watching. "Mom?" he asked quietly. "Is that them?" I nodded. "Yeah, baby. That's them." He frowned. "They look sad." I took a deep breath. "Some people only realize what they had when it's too late. That's not sadness, honey. That's what guilt looks like when no one's left to listen." He looked down, thinking, "Will you help them?" I stared ahead at the flickering porch light, then started the engine. "I already did," I said softly. "I stopped letting them hurt us." We drove away, the fire truck toy still clipped to his backpack, its faded red paint catching the last light of day. Months passed before I heard their names again. Life had started to feel like mine for once, steady, quiet, and built on my own terms. Liam was thriving in school. He'd joined the robotics club, proudly showing me every little creation like it was a masterpiece. I'd gotten a promotion at work, now overseeing a small team of investigators handling complex abuse cases. And for the first time in years, I woke up without dread pressing on my chest. But peace has a way of testing you. One night, around 11, there was a knock at the door. A slow, dragging kind of knock that carried hesitation. I peeked through the window and my stomach dropped. My mother. Her hair was gray now, her once perfect blouse wrinkled and damp from rain. Behind her, half hidden by the dark, stood my father, leaner, weaker, leaning on a cane. Liam looked up from the couch. "Mom, who is it?" "Just someone from before," I said quietly. When I opened the door, cold air rushed in, carrying their silence with it. My mother's eyes darted around the room, landing on the family photos lining the wall. Me and Liam at the park, me holding my diploma. No trace of them anywhere. "Can we come in?" she asked softly, her voice trembling. "Why?" I asked flatly. She blinked, startled. "It's freezing. Your father, he's been sick. We lost the house, the car, the company's gone. We have nowhere else to go." I crossed my arms. "That's not my problem." Her lips trembled. "Ava, we're still your parents." I almost laughed. "Parents? No. You were landlords of pain, collecting rent from my dignity every day I lived under your roof." My father coughed, leaning heavier on his cane. "We didn't come here to fight. We just need a place to stay until things get better." "Things?" I said, my voice rising. "You mean you? You kicked me out at 15 so your precious son could have a room of his own. You said I didn't deserve to breathe his air. You broke my ribs because I dared to buy my child a toy. Now you want me to pretend that never happened?" He looked down, his voice quieter now. "People make mistakes." "Mistakes are spilled coffee," I said, stepping closer. "What you did was cruelty, and cruelty always comes home eventually." My mother started crying. "Ava, please, we're not asking for much, just the couch for a few nights. You don't know what it's like to be alone." I looked her dead in the eye. "Yes, I do. You taught me." Behind me, Liam had come to the doorway. He looked between us, confused, but calm. "Mom," he whispered, "you don't have to let them in." My mother flinched at his words. "That's your grandson talking to you," she said, desperate. "You're teaching him to hate family." "No," I said softly, placing a hand on Liam's shoulder. "I'm teaching him what family isn't." The wind howled outside. My father coughed again, muttering something under his breath. Maybe an insult, maybe shame. It didn't matter anymore. I looked past them, toward the street, where the same cold drizzle from that night years ago now painted the pavement silver. "You both chose this," I said, my voice steady. "Every lie, every bruise, every dollar you stole, it brought you here. You said I didn't deserve to breathe the same air as him. Now you can breathe it alone." I stepped back and closed the door. My mother's sob hit the air before the latch clicked. I stood there for a long moment, listening to the rain and the sound of their footsteps fading down the driveway. That night, Liam curled up beside me on the couch, resting his head against my shoulder. "Mom," he asked, "are you okay?" I smiled faintly. "Yeah, baby. I am now." He looked up at me. "They'll be cold tonight." "Maybe," I said, quietly, brushing his hair back. "But sometimes, cold is what people need to remember warmth." He thought about that for a moment before drifting off to sleep. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains, soft and golden. I made coffee, turned on the TV, and saw a small local news segment about a charity shelter opening for displaced seniors. I recognized the name of the director. It was a woman I'd mentored last year. Without hesitating, I called her. "Hey," I said, keeping my tone light. "I know a couple who might show up at your door soon. They'll need a roof, but be careful. They'll also need rules." She chuckled softly, understanding. "Got it. You sure you're okay with that?" "Yeah," I said, smiling faintly. "Everyone deserves a second chance, even if it's not with me." After hanging up, I went to wake Liam. We spent the day cleaning the house, laughing, making pancakes that burned on one side but still tasted like victory. Later that evening, I found the little red fire truck in his room, the one from the day everything began. Its siren still worked, faint but alive. I pressed the button and the sound filled the room, echoing against the walls like a heartbeat. It reminded me of how far we'd come, from pain, from humiliation, from the belief that love had to hurt to be real. My revenge wasn't fire or chaos. It was this, living better than they ever believed I could, raising my son in peace, not fear, building the kind of home I'd once been denied. Some nights, when the wind carries the sound of distant footsteps or faint voices outside, I wonder if they still think about me. But it doesn't matter, because now, when I breathe, it's on my own terms, and the air has never felt this clean. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.